Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 14. We just scrapped the first 10 minutes of our previous episode because we were talking out of a can again.
Yeah, we didn't realize until we, funnily enough, heard the neighbor's trash can going by and realized, oh, that's going to get picked up. We should probably mute the mic. And then we saw that there was still sound going in the computer.
Yeah, the mic was still going, which means the mic that I wanted to record out of, even though it was muted, was muted, but all the sound was coming through the awful laptop speaker, or mic rather. Yeah, every Sunday night the neighbor decides with his humongous rattly can to bring it to the curb.
Bear-proof
can. It's a bear-proof can with giant air quotes. It rattles so loud. I'm always afraid he's going to wake the toddler up. It's outlandishly loud, and it is, 10:30?
Yeah, and then every Monday, they haul it back up right when I'm trying to put the kids down for a nap.
Every Monday at 11:30 a.m. when the kid is trying to take a nap, that's when he decides to haul it back up to his house. It's real obnoxious. Anyway, little anecdote into our private lives and how we don't like the neighbor's trash can.
It's better than smelling marijuana all the time.
That's true. The old neighbor used to smoke marijuana and have it waft right into our toddler's window. Amazing.
Ugh.
Our
Alaska.
Our neighborhood's nice, but those two things annoy us. It's pretty nice neighborhood.
Well, somebody did get murdered literally right down... A double murder.
Double murder. Yeah, down the way.
We call it the murder condos now.
Yep, forever known as the murder condos now.
I couldn't even remember the name of the condos.
Well,
because I've been calling it that so long.
You should just make up a sign and put it down there on their official sign. Murder condos.
Oh no, because they tried to spruce the place up.
Did they? Because it looks terrible.
They power sprayed it and apparently...
And all the paint come off and they just left it?
Well, no, actually, remember, because you talked to someone who lived there and they said that after they power sprayed, the stuff started seeping out of the walls.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's bad news down there. But what?
I was going to say, I actually looked at a place on the downhill side of that place before we got married when we were trying to find you an apartment.
Mm.
And the landlord had not been in there for a long time. And he was so embarrassed. He called me after I left and he said, so yeah, I hadn't been in there. And so I'm going to take it off the market. I'm going to clean it up and then I'll put it back out. I said, okay, that's nice. And then I thought, I'm not calling you back.
That's pretty funny.
So it was just awful.
He's like, please call me back. Please. It'll be nice, I swear.
Oh, those places are terrible. Anyway,
we were going to touch on something we said we would touch on again so soon.
You want to hand me the notes since you got...
How about you just reach over and grab the notes? We were going to touch upon Jeffrey Epstein and his current woes. And we have got a couple new theories about him.
I think we already talked about them a little bit on the podcast about him.
No, well, the theories, yes, but between that episode and this episode, he was found in the fetal position, beat half to death in his cell.
Was he beat up? I thought he had marks in his neck.
Oh, yeah, well, he's in the fetal position. You don't get in that position unless you get kicked real hard in a very special spot that makes all men curl up in the fetal position.
You think so?
I think so.
We need to do... We didn't research that in particular.
Well,
because we were
I've heard enough about it. Apparently his cellmate was a convicted ex-cop. Have you heard this? He's an ex-cop who was convicted of quadruple homicide, killing 4 people.
That was 5. But regardless.
A bunch of people, and allegedly, presumably, according to the reports, that same cop had, brought the bodies to his, empty apartment and left him there.
Oh, I thought he buried him.
Okay, he buried him in the backyard of his apartment. I did hear that,
okay.
So if you heard that too. Yeah, he buried the bodies in the backyard of, a disused apartment somewhere. One sadistic dude. He's
kind of weird looking in the pictures,
sociopathic weirdo. Yeah, that guy was his cellmate. He knew exactly who he was, because everyone knows who Jeffrey Epstein is now.
So I didn't know it was his cellmate. Mm-hmm. I figured because they were questioning that guy.
And apparently he had a cell phone as well. They found a cell phone on the guy.
Huh.
In prison. Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder how that happens.
So I think I seem to recall that I said I thought Epstein was going to be suicided.
Yes, you did say that, and a lot of people thought so, but they didn't get the job done, which is indicative of other things, if you ask me. If Epstein's wrapped up in all these super powerful people who are going to suicide him, they wouldn't have botched it this bad. They would have made sure he was dead.
Unless that they just chose a guy based off opportunity. Like, hey, there's this guy who's his cellmate. Let's get him a cell phone and tell him we'll do blah 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 for him.
That's true.
And he just, screwed it up.
Yeah.
It does happen.
It seems kind of messy and imprecise, though. I mean, if these people are as powerful as we think, and we've all seen the spy movies, we've all seen the movies.
Well, last I heard, the cop was denying, ex-cop was denying anything. But think about it. If he did screw it up, or he did get caught, all he'd have to say is that, well, the guy's a pedophile.
That's true.
Because everybody knows what happens to pedophiles in prison, right?
It's true. Everyone knows.
So
it's common knowledge. Yeah, so anyway, we watched a thing by someone else a little earlier who claims that the Jeffrey Epstein is all controlled. It was the whole thing is controlled, including him being beat up and attempted suicide in giant air quotes. Huh?
I didn't watch that one. Was that?
Yeah, the guy who wants to blame the Jews for everything Epstein was wrapped up in.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't listening. That was last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, he thinks Epstein is a Mossad operation. His whole thing was a Mossad operation. They funded all his money because no one seems to know where Jeffrey Epstein got all his money, which is stupid. They ought to know. People ought to know. You can't point at. You can point at any billionaire in the world, in big air quotes, billionaire. I don't think he even had a billion, but they called him that over and over. You can point at any of them and tell exactly where a portion of their money comes from. You know what I mean?
I think calling him a billionaire is just another way to tie him to Trump.
Just
to make that mental linkage.
Yeah, it's possible. Anyway, that guy thinks that all his money came from Mossad, and the whole pedophile island, Little St. James pedophile island, Lolita Express jet, all that stuff. All the wired hotel rooms and wired rooms in the suites on his island, so that they're all wired for video. The whole thing was just a giant blackmail data collection operation run by Mossad to get dirt on everything and everyone, so that they can control everyone. Really? Seems a little far-fetched, but I'm willing to entertain it. But
well, you know what I think about stuff like that.
And I agree to a certain extent. People get on their high horses about the Jews, and then they just sound like ranting, raving, crazy people who, the Jews are doing it. The Jews are collecting data on everyone, and they're blackmailing our whole government, and blah, blah, blah. Jews this, Jews that. Come on, man. I don't know. It's a little heavy-handed. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't disagree with the fact that there are Jews in high places, and that's a little disturbing that they're all connected, and that they seem to have more loyalty to their identity than to the country they reside in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're gonna make sweeping generalizations, you gotta do about everybody. And as, as Europeans, I guess, do we want people to do that about us?
Oh, because I'm European now?
Yeah, you're European American.
Heinz 57, that's what I am. You ever had the special steak sauce? Heinz 57. That's me. 57 flavors.
I'm a little more.
Shall I enumerate them?
No.
Okay, I won't say them all. There's a bunch.
I do know that I'm mostly Norwegian, but my red-haired, fair-skinned sister is apparently more black than Elizabeth Warren is Native American. Sub-Saharan African.
Everyone is more Native American than that woman. She had a liar for a grandmother. Isn't that who she attributed to?
My grandpa.
My grandpa had these
high cheekbones, like all the Indians do. And my grandma
always had these traditions that we did growing up. Native American traditions. Come on now.
Anyway, we went off left. Basically, we agreed it's disturbing that Jews run Hollywood, Jews in our government care more about Israel than our own country, apparently, but we're not ready to jump on the Those darn Jews.
Did I ever read you that list of people who have dual in high government status, like Washington D.C., that have dual citizenship with Israel? The list is shockingly long. So many of them are dual citizenships with Israel. It's weird. It's a little weird. I don't know what that means. Like, I can't draw any conclusions, but it's more than you'd think.
Well, the other side of that is that there are many, many, quote, Jews, because you gotta use the quotes, because they're not practicing any religion, except progressivism, who absolutely despise Israel.
Yeah.
But they cling to their status of Jew, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can prove it to the 7th generation through your mother's side or whatever, then you get a free ticket to Israel.
Well, I'm pretty sure Natalie Portman, I believe, grew up in Israel, or spent a good deal of her childhood there. And she's one of those people who seems to desperately hate what her country is doing. Anyway, we got off topic. We were talking about Epstein.
Right. So in my notes, there's one little note. It says, "Is Epstein an MK Ultra victim?"
I think he was associated with MK Ultra.
You don't think he's a victim himself? Like he's controlled by someone else we don't know or see?
No.
Maybe he did all that to himself to make it look like... Maybe they're using like really deep psychology. So somebody said like the trigger words or whatever to him in his cell. And he did all that to himself to make it look like an attempted suicide, but purposefully didn't succeed. So that the conspiracy people will think that he's trying to be suicided. Real layered psychology.
I think, like I said last time, that I think he probably was recruiting sex slaves or blackmail. I think the whole thing probably is built around blackmail. But by the deep state, not a foreign country.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they're the deep state, definitely would, I think they would definitely utilize a ton of blackmail on whoever they could get it. The more, the merrier. The more, that's not probably the best way to put it. The more blackmail they have, the better off they'll be, because then they can blackmail people. More dirt, rather. Not blackmail. It's only blackmail if you use it for leverage. More incriminating evidence. More leverage, yes. More status quo type of stuff.
Did you just wake her up?
It's entirely possible I just woke the baby up.
Anyway, where are we going from that?
I don't know. You wanted to talk about MK Ultra, so there's my segue. It was perfect. It was a beautiful segue.
Well, you were reading something entirely different. The longest Twitter thread in history. I started there, and then I thought I was going to read the Mueller report, so I looked up that, and I thought, that's going to take me days. At least based off the PDF I was looking at. It might actually be shorter than I was thinking. And then I thought, well, I'm going to look into something that we said we were going to talk about again. So I got onto YouTube, because I was tired of holding my phone and Googling things. And I came back to the Shayla Miller and Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. And I found a video by a guy, it's about 3 years old, and he was talking about the same subject that we mentioned in our MK Ultra episode, with the girls talking about their sister going to live with Cathy and Mark. And it wasn't really anything new, except that he mentioned a woman named Bryce Taylor, who apparently had also... Why are you moving the mic?
Because you're not registering as high as I am.
Who had apparently also gone to live with Mark and Cathy at one point, and had later written a book accusing them of basically leeching off of her, stealing a lot of her money, and then ending by telling her, "Oh, well, you know what? You never actually were abused. You imagined all of this. Aren't you so happy?"
Yeah, apparently Mark Phillips got her, according to her, an excerpt we read from her book, Mark Phillips got her to write journals, like really intimate journals, basically doing her own regressive, like, memory recording. As therapists do, they get people to write everything down. And something like 40 volumes was a lot.
I didn't see
it. Was a whole bunch of journals over the course of years, writing all this stuff down. And he poured over it and read all this stuff. And she had these long conversations with Cathy O'Brien, and all their experiences were so similar, and all these horrible things happened to both of them. And the training, the MK Ultra mind control training was real similar, and on and on and on. And then in the end, oh, sorry, you don't have anything. That never happened to you. You just have a big imagination. Congrats.
Yeah, one of the things that she said in the excerpt, if it was really an excerpt, because we found it on a blog, went down some weird rabbit holes, is she mentioned that Mark Phillips seemed to know things about her programming that were just a little too...
on the nose?
Yes, like for instance, apparently he said, so you had a twin sister, didn't you? And it was some sort of a trigger for her. Mentioning a twin sister.
Yeah, it was like a code phrase, like a trigger phrase to bring out an alter. Because he said something about don't you have a twin sister that's 2 inches shorter than you? And that was like the code phrase. And she said she basically became a robot. Like she had to do everything he said from then on for a while or whatever. Like he knew how to trigger her, basically. And when I say trigger, I don't mean SJW trigger. I mean like actual, like bringing an alter out of mind control. Like a dissociative identity that came through. Pretty hardcore stuff.
So then, from there, something that occurred to me was, if Mark Phillips is the abuser in all of this and Cathy O'Brien's completely innocent, you have to wonder, because I was looking at pictures of Cathy O'Brien, you didn't agree with me, but I looked at pictures of Cathy O'Brien when she was younger, and I was looking at the video of Shayla Miller, and I was thinking, they look kind of similar. I'm not suggesting that they're related in any way, of course. But I was just thinking, if somebody had a thing for kind of natural-looking blonde girls with, kind of an average face, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it stood out to me that they kind of had a similar natural look to them, and they were both blonde. I don't know.
Maybe what you're detecting is what we discussed like a week ago. Remember when we were talking about Charlize Theron? We were talking about Charlize Theron.
Oh.
Because we saw something about Atomic Blonde. Right. Charlize Theron and Nicole Kidman, and there was a third name in there. And I mentioned that they're all kind of like...
interchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the big media giant out there, the big ephemeral thing known as them. They want us to accept this standard of beauty, and it's a standardized thing, and that's why these specific looks of actresses ended up as the forefront of what you expect as beauty in the movies. And those two women and someone else, we had another name, I forget who now, but they all kind of just have the same look because that's what's expected of the pretty blonde girl in the movies. They all look the same now, and therefore it's kind of plain and boring. There's no standouts. They all look that way.
Well, not to be...
Oh, I remember we were talking about that chick from Mission Impossible Fallout, the blonde chick in Mission Impossible Fallout, and the new Fast and Furious spin-off movie. She just has this look that she just...
kind of a blank slate.
She's pretty and she's blonde and therefore kind of boring because there's a ton of those. You know?
Well, what I was going to say that sounds kind of mean is that something that always bothered me about the Cathy O'Brien story when you and Ryan mentioned it to me years ago was that she tries to claim everyone you've ever heard of. And I saw people on forums talking about this too. She claims everyone you've ever heard of raped her.
It's a lot. It's a big list. It's like a giant laundry list of highly renowned individuals in the government and the entertainment industry that allegedly had sexual liaisons with her.
Yeah, and I pointed out to you that I haven't seen tons and tons of pictures of her when she was young, but all the photos of her when she was younger, she wasn't really that interesting looking. She's not bad looking, but she's not that interesting looking.
Yeah, I don't think she's an exceptional beauty.
So we're just going to say that all these higher-up people just had the hots for her so much that they chose her as their MK slave.
Yeah, and you would think if this is such a common thing, if there's a lot of these victims, and therefore a lot of high-level prostitutes, as it sounds like she was, if there's a bunch of these people, then you'd think there'd be others that were prettier than her, and they'd choose them over her.
I know we sound really callous right now.
She's just kind of plain. She's not bad, I agree. She's not bad, but I certainly don't consider her an exceptionally gorgeous in her younger photos. You know?
Yeah, so that's something that always bothered me, and I saw that in other forum posts and etc. It bothers me when someone tries to say, oh, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and this, and I met this person, and I had sex with this person. Like,
yeah, it's a lot.
How many boxes can you check? And then something else that we both tried to look into and we could find zip on was what happened to Cathy O'Brien's daughter. And the only thing that I found was from some random website that was really badly designed. So it just full of capital letters, looked like somebody had, just thrown it up there and never gone back to make it look more professional.
I don't think you showed that to me, did you?
No, it might still be open on my phone, but it was the only thing I could find that said that Cathy O'Brien's daughter had been institutionalized at the age of 8. Which, she looked to be about that age in the picture that Cathy O'Brien posted claiming that they were on Little St. James Island, which I think I forgot to mention, is that I found a post from Cathy O'Brien just mentioning Epstein, didn't say anything of importance or interest, but posted 2 photos that she claimed were her and her daughter on Little St. James.
And that seems extremely incriminating. I'm surprised she even put that out there. Because she does the full disclosure thing, apparently.
Well, the claim is that Mark Phillips saved her and her daughter. But if you try looking up her daughter, you can't find anything. If you look up Kelly O'Brien, some video of a woman pushing gun control comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only video you can find, and I'm convinced that isn't her now. I think the whole internet... If you can't find any photos of the woman that is directly like, hey, this is the MK Ultra survivor victim's daughter.
Yeah.
I found nothing that said that about a woman that looked like that other woman.
No, I just found that kind of funny that the first thing that comes up when you look up Kelly O'Brien is a video of somebody pushing gun control. I just thought that was weird. But yeah. I agree with you, that's not much to go on. And the other thing I tried to look up was, does Cathy O'Brien actually have a daughter? But nothing comes up.
She very well could not. I mean, there's so little info out there about her daughter that it might be a total fabrication. Because from what we've been looking at, her story isn't that trustworthy because Mark Phillips isn't trustworthy, and he's liberated her. He's rescued her from the abuse, and he's
apparently
out of
helped her heal.
Yeah, and they were united him forever, and
apparently they got married at some point.
Okay, either way, he's their savior, right? And you can't trust him because he's a shifty dude. So how much of what she says can you trust?
Yeah,
nothing. Maybe she's not even writing all her blog posts.
Well, he's dead though.
I know, but her most recent blog post was just like 2 weeks ago. I just found one online on her on her website. Mm-hmm. So maybe she's not even writing those. You just don't know. You can't really trust any of it because there's so many bad actors in the opera.
I mean, I feel like this is something we're gonna have to keep going back to and just digging further and further back because you'd have to find when. Sorry, I'm tired. They first emerged on the public scene is who spoke first, what was said.
Yeah.
If, for instance, what about Bryce Taylor? What if her story is real? And what if Cathy and Mark just squeezed her for the story in order to, come up with it? Or what if Mark convinced Cathy that these things happen? Because we've talked before, I think, about how hard is it to plant false memories without any sort of abuse.
And didn't somebody think... Sorry to interrupt you, but didn't somebody claim that maybe Mark was actually an MK victim as well? And one of his alters is to be the handler?
I think...
And it's like a double layer of handler being handled and then handling someone else?
Did I say that earlier?
Maybe it was you.
I don't know. No, so
That's a freaky thought.
Or no, maybe it was that video we were watching. Maybe he mentioned that. But I think I've mentioned before that I don't think it would be that hard to implant false memories in someone who's super suggestible and has a good imagination.
Yeah.
Without abuse. And I think maybe people would scoff at that, but I think if you thought hard enough about it and you're the sort of person who has a good imagination, you can come up with something.
I have a false memory. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I remember when I was like 6 or 8, I would run and I would jump off of one leg, and I feel like I can actually remember like floating a little bit each time I did it, like unnaturally high. I would just like float up the top of my jump a little every time I did it. My experience with the real world as an adult would seem to indicate this is a false memory. That I can't actually float if I jump.
Well, I have a number of memories of my childhood that could be dreams, or they could be real, or they could be stories that someone told to me and I filled in the blanks.
Like that time you were trapped underwater in a ship and there were zombies.
Oh, that was a very awesome dream.
Yeah.
I have had a number of dreams about being underwater, underwater bunkers, underwater elevator shaft. Like, I had so many dreams about being underwater with creepiness, fighting zombies. I had a katana at one point. They are awesome dreams.
Oh, my word.
You do not judge me for them.
No judgment here. No judgment here.
I had another one where I was Adam Jensen. Somehow that meshed with a zombie dream, too.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were a man?
No, it was kind of confusing. I was...
Clearly.
It was like 3 different dreams. At some point, I was on a motorcycle crawling, and then I was crawling through an air shaft at the store I used to work at, and then it was a long, convoluted dream.
Great.
That went through several different evolutions. But at one point, you and I were trying to survive World War Z, and I was pregnant. I think it was before we had our firstborn, but I was pregnant.
Was I Adam Jensen? Because apparently that's me.
No.
Okay.
No, our child thinks that you're Adam Jensen. It's kind of funny.
Well,
but,
yes.
But no, at some point we were in a car, we were being surrounded by zombies, and then somebody said it would be a good idea to escape them by going into the sewer system or something, or going to the street. And I was like, I can't fit through that. It was tiny. You know how everything is super tiny when you're trying to fit through it in a dream? And then, of course, there were zombies under the street, because of course there are.
Of course,
and who thought it was a good idea to go down there in the dark? It just... Anyway. I have awesome, epic dreams.
Alright then. That was good. Thanks for that little trip down.
Well, you brought it up by talking about underwater zombies.
It's true. So, where were we? How do we get back on track after that?
I don't remember what we were talking about.
I don't know. Bryce Taylor. We should read her book.
Implanted memories. I was thinking we need to
I'd be more interested in her book than Cathy O'Brien's first book, which is on the shelf behind us. I found it. It's back there.
Did you? Okay. I'm still going to read it, or try to. All that to say, I don't think implanted memories are as hard to do as people think, depending on the person. I know there are some people out there who have absolutely nothing for imagination, and those people are incredibly boring to talk to. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Tragically, it's I believe it's a birth defect, being born completely without an imagination or a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yes. People just they don't normally exist without those things, but some people just don't have them.
Can I segue into my other point?
Please.
So my other thought...
You know, if you say it's a segue, it's not a good segue.
Hey.
All right, go ahead.
My other thought with that and implanted memories is how much of that do you think is the Mandela effect?
You're getting into a whole another episode of topics here. We'll touch on it. That'll be the next episode. I think that a certain percentage of Mandela effect is definitely what you're suggesting. But some of them are so blatantly indicative of something funny going on, something hinky.
So, my thought with that is the whole Berenstain Bears thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was exposed to...
You just pronounced it wrong. Because you're from the same universe I am. Where it's Berenstein, not Berenstain.
Actually, I think I said Berenstain. Regardless, everybody knows that a lot of words end in Stein. Mm-hmm. I was exposed to a lot of German and, languages like that as a kid because my sister was learning German. She was a lot older than me. Mm-hmm. We, read certain books, watched certain movies. My dad was into World War II, that sort of thing. So, Stein, all that stuff, that's what you expect to see. That's what most people expect to see. So stain is not something people expect. So I wonder how much of that is just social programming. That when people get to an age where they go back and look at it, it looks wrong.
I suppose, but you would think if your parents read those books to you back in the day, they would say the word to you when you were young, before you could even read or conceptualize that the ein sound at the end of Germanic language-based words is very common.
But consider...
They would say stain because they're reading it off the page to you as a kid, and you would imprint that into your mind, and it would stick with you, not the other way.
Well, consider how much of American English has been crunched down to, not even get the full word, though.
Okay, but what about the other one that I think is the biggest indication?
You're talking about James Bond.
I'm talking about the Jaws one, yeah.
So then...
What's your take on that?
If
you're the skeptic. Is that written down?
Yeah, barely. I was gonna say, and how much of this do you think is a massive social experiment? Because that's my other thought. It would not surprise me in the least, because we know that Hollywood's been involved in all sorts of, hanky stuff like that. How much of it would be somebody saying, we're going to release this thing, we're going to put it in the eye of the public, a whole generation is going to see this, and then we're going to erase it like it was never there, and we're going to study the effect on the population.
You think that Hollywood is they're in for the long con, as it were? They've been working on this thing for the past 58 years or whatever, because that movie came out in the 60s.
Maybe.
It's a long haul to suddenly come out with it in the past couple of years.
Well, where do you think that certain experiments are being done? I'm certain that there's experiments being done on a massive scale on populations without people knowing.
Can you go down the list of Mandela effect things that people have discovered? Mm-hmm. Put that in air quotes because whatever. Some of them blow your mind. Just mine comes right out, totally blown.
Well, as a Christian, you got to be skeptical of some of these things.
Well, I think that there's a group of scientists with a big particle accelerator, and they've smashed some atoms, and those atoms opened a doorway, and a bunch of our consciousnesses swapped places with parallel consciousnesses in other places, and they're really similar parallel realities, and that's why some things are different.
Well, I'm never going to accept that, because that is blatantly against what I believe as a Christian. Because that takes away from free will. Consider, you're a Christian in one universe. You're not a Christian in a parallel universe.
Right, because everything is possible.
One day you wake up and you're not married to the person that you married.
That's right.
And you're no longer a Christian. That takes away from free will.
That's right. Why am I agreeing with you? I'm supposed to be devil's advocating here. Well, the parallel universes thing is, a really foolish theory anyway, when it gets down to it. But we won't get into that because there's a lot of philosophy and logic involved. It's too late for me to really exposit all that stuff.
I actually had a dream where
all men were created equal?
No. Where I woke up one day and you and I were not married, and I remembered you, and I think you didn't remember.
And my last name was spelled with an A instead of an I.
No, you were dating somebody.
Parallel reality.
And I think I was gonna beat her up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be all right. I'd get my phone out and film it, put it on YouTube, viral video. Well, I think that's a pretty good episode there.
No, we should wrap it up. Short.
No way.
Because the first 10 minutes we're gonna cut. Remember?
It's 45 minutes. Are we cutting the first 10 minutes?
Yeah, because remember we were just gonna let it play.
It's 35 minutes.
No, because so every episode, for some reason, sound drops out at a certain point. So this time we turned on and we just let it go and talked about randomness.
Anybody listening probably will notice in previous episodes some dropped audio, which is real obnoxious, and I don't like it, so we're trying to mitigate that problem. Because until I buy a new laptop, hey, send me some money so I can buy a new laptop.
I don't think it's a laptop, because we changed laptops. I thought it was the software.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
We do want to get better software. Eventually, we're going to get me my own mic.
We're working on it. The show must go on. The show will advance. We'll get better. We only have one microphone. We're doing this cheap right now.
So, but you didn't even talk about what you were looking at on that thread on Twitter.
Oh, that? No, we're not going to talk about that. Your topic was too big.
We got 30 minutes left.
I know. We do not. We touched on Epstein. And I didn't read enough of that thread to really get into it. We'll do an episode on QAnon.
Well, what I thought was interesting in that, and for some reason it started like right in the middle. I didn't actually get that far when I started reading from the top.
You gotta scroll. They pop up as you scroll.
I'm aware.
All right.
I scroll all the way to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Took me forever.
I read to you all the way to like number 48.
Did you?
I did.
Did you really?
48. That's the one I remember.
Anyway, what I thought was interesting in there was the subject of the person who signed off on Obama's birth certificate or something, dying mysteriously, the only person who died in a plane crash. I didn't actually get there to read that, but I wanted to because it looked interesting. And it looked like somebody on there was saying something about how somebody went in to rescue her or pull her out of the crash, and maybe they kill her instead.
Well, the very end of that stream was, are you talking about in the water?
Yeah.
Yeah. We should watch that video. Apparently you can see a frogman, which is a colloquial term for a Navy SEAL.
Oh, is that?
A Navy SEAL. Like a highly trained individual who works in the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that before. So yeah, that was something that I wanted to actually get to, but I felt like I should start at the beginning. And
well, you could have started at 48 because that's where I read.
I don't think you did.
I did. I got to 46. You're right. Not 48, 46. Anyway, you got me talking about that thread anyway.
Well, are you going to? Because we got 30 minutes.
No, because I only got to 46 and there's like 120 posts. I didn't get the full story. It's very complex and deep. Well, I need to write notes.
Well, to jump back into the Cathy O'Brien thing then.
Oh,
so
right.
The video I was watching earlier that I can't remember the name of the channel. It was a 3-year-old video. But in it, he referenced a Mark Dice article where he talked about it. And I went to try and find that. And apparently Mark Dice took his website down. Because if you...
Or someone took it down.
No, because if you look up markdice.com, it takes you to his Teespring.
Oh, so he has his domain and he directed it to Teespring?
I must have. Yeah, I was a little disappointed. Because then I went to Facebook and I found the same link. And again, it took me to Teespring.
That's kind of surprising, because he can't sell his books on Teespring.
Oh. I don't know, I'm pretty sure it was
Teespring. You can get them all through Amazon, but I would think that he would want to sell stuff himself so he could get more profit out of it.
Yeah, you can, if you can get sales. Amazon's a pretty good way to do it.
You can get sales.
Well, yeah, but Amazon's a pretty good way to do it for self-publishing because you cut out the middleman. It's just you and Amazon.
It's a little sad that... I feel like it's a little sad that Mark Dice isn't... He's gotten soft as far as conspiracy. He only does like a news analysis now, which is a little boring to me. It's cool that he does it, and he does a good job, but it's not exciting, weird, conspiracy type stuff. He has whole books based around
maybe he feels like he covered it all.
Satanism in Hollywood.
Well, maybe he feels like he's covered it all. We haven't read any of his books, his old books.
That's true, but those books are entirely about conspiracy type stuff, and now he just does fake news analysis and exposure, which is pretty soft.
Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to read his older books at some point. It's funny because when I first met you, you and Ryan were really into conspiracy. Okay, Ryan was really into conspiracy stuff, and you kind of were. And I seem to recall at some point Ryan decided that Mark Dice was just controlled opposition.
Oh yeah, as a gatekeeper.
But at the time, Mark Dice seemed like he was really out there, and you're right. Over the last 7 years, it seems like he's really shifted away from conspiracy.
Yeah, and maybe he's the one they were talking about when the big time media was talking about Trump's summit, his social media summit. They invited a bunch of right wing conspiracy theorists. Maybe he's the one that gave them all a bad name, as it were, or a good name.
Maybe he was a little confrontational. I mean, he was polite. It was funny, but
he was trying to get his go, which I'm not a fan of instigating people.
Yeah, apparently Jim Acosta threw a hissy fit in front of a bunch of children after the camera stopped.
Yeah, if he had legitimately tried to have a conversation with the man and he had turned him down, that would have made for a very short video, but one that still got the point across.
Yeah.
This guy's not willing to talk to me, even though I was cordial to him, Instead, he was really poking at him and trying to hammer at him, which is kind of unkind.
Well, to be fair, we do like Mark Dice, though.
Yeah, no, we love him. I don't like when anybody does that. Follow people down the street with a mic in their face and ask them the same thing over and over, trying to get him to say something off color.
Yeah.
It's kind of what he was doing to him. But, whatever. He's got to get his views, and that's fine. Jim Acosta is a bonehead anyway, so...
Yeah, that doctored video of him slapping a woman's arm away.
Yes, doctored. I've run out of talking points.
There was something else back with Epstein and all that we're going to talk about, I thought.
You know what we should talk about in a future episode? Which kind of somewhat, little bit ties into the whole mind control slave thing and the pedophilia sex ring type of thing. It definitely ties in that, is the Franklin case.
I don't know what that is.
The Franklin case. I told you about it a few months ago, I believe. Basically, they're... A really, really lightweight explanation is there was a federal credit union in Nebraska, in Omaha, that was involved in some high-level, gnarly stuff involving a CIA agent that had a safe house in D.C. where he would hobnob with people and get dirt on them with the video recordings in the rooms upstairs, and there was money being funneled through this place, $40 million got funneled through this place in Omaha, and really crazy stuff, and the whole thing got blown wide open by deep investigative journalism. And a whole bunch of people got arrested. It's a real life crazy busted up ring of dirty, dastardly stuff. Very interesting.
I think I saw that name when I was scrolling
and
through
that's why I mentioned it, because I must have watched a documentary on it or read a thing, but it's a fascinating case. But it ties into the ritual abuse, mind control victim thing as well. There's a guy in there there's two people who claim that they were victimized as children to the point of being controlled slaves. Pretty wild stuff. So, look for that episode in the future. We're going to watch our documentaries and write a bunch of notes and red pill everyone to this thing.
Yeah, we need to get better writing notes.
I know. Well, this is kind of impromptu. We did a podcast last night, so here we are doing another one.
Well, we did have more of a plan for what we're going to look into, and that kind of went out the window. We keep intending to talk about the secret tunnels under undisclosed, unnamed, allegedly pizza place and Sweet Jesus ice cream. Oh, yeah,
that's coming. That's an episode that's coming.
Donuts.
I'll try and do some research this week on that and write a bunch of notes, and then we'll have all kinds of good content next week.
You know what did bother me? To change topics for a minute. The other day, I was on Twitter and I saw that Christian privilege was trending. And half of it was people saying, using it respectfully, like Christian privilege is knowing that I'm going to heaven. Haha, you're not. But a lot of it was just people like Christian privilege is being able to do etc., and get away with it. Like, come on.
They clearly don't know what statistics are, because statistically, Christians are the most persecuted ideological group in the world.
Well, and what came to mind is because we were talking about those creepy pedophilia pushing places, was how disrespectful people. It's okay to take Christian symbols and twist them into disturbing things, or like Sweet Jesus ice cream. There are all sorts of anti-Christian occultic symbolism there.
It's blatant Satanism.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah. It's okay to do that. It's okay to do something simply for the sake of being anti-Christian, which is what it seems like Satanists are doing nowadays. They're making after-school programs to combat those Christians.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to do that, but if you say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to try on a hijab because it's a symbol of oppression, you racist.
Well, it just goes back to that, and we've touched on this before. I'm not sure if we've put it on the podcast or not, but we've had the conversation about how, the reason the Muslim ideology commands a certain respect that Christianity doesn't, because they're militant.
Yeah.
Because there's an entire chunk of it devoted to what's known as jihad, where they kill the infidels and they throw the gay people off roofs. Like, there's a chunk of it that's really, really violent and goes against your human rights, and straps bombs to children and sends them out to blow them up so they can have their 72 virgins in the afterlife. Like, there's some really gnarly things in Islam, and Christianity just lacks all that. Therefore, Christianity doesn't get the respect.
What's ironic about that is that if you say those things, people are like, what about Christians bombing abortion centers? Okay, please show me the last time that happened.
I know. It's been like one occasion, and that guy, I feel like if you look into him, he some really wacky ideas. Yeah, really wacky, that don't line up with a Christian worldview. Yeah, Christians are known to be pacifists, which is funny because if you look in the Bible, sometimes they certainly weren't pacifists. Jesus was not a pacifist, if you look at some of the things he did. And it's a little bit of a shame that Christians don't stand up for themselves a little stronger, because then they might get a little more respect instead of just being the whipping boys of the ideological world, Well,
I think that's definitely become a problem in churches. We've changed churches a few times since we've been married, and one of the most recent times was just because we felt like the message we were receiving was the same message every week and a little soft.
Yeah.
But I'm sure anyone who's a Christian or has been paying attention remembers the article a few years back from John Piper saying that, well, if someone broke into my house and wanted to rape my wife and children and kill us all, I don't think I'd do anything because we're all ready to go. And I was just thinking, that is so unbiblical.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
And it bothers me how many people just hold John Piper up on this pedestal. And I recall that the church we were going to when we met and got married, everyone there seemed to just love John Piper. I never listened to him. I didn't know who he was, really. I just knew that a lot of people liked him.
Yeah.
And from then on, I didn't have a lot of respect for anyone who
It's funny because he's
him.
kind of known as being a fiery brimstone, convicting type of of the speaker, yeah. He says things like it is, and he convicts you because he says things you don't want to hear, even though they're biblical truths, and on and on. The dude's not willing to defend his family against assailants with a gun. Come on. Yeah. Well, that is the highest order of self-defense, is the gun, because it equalizes everyone. And someone of better physical prowess than you is not going to be better than you.
Well, his whole point was that he didn't want to commit the sin of murder by defending his family.
Right. Well, if you read the Bible, there's all kinds of death that's ordained by God.
Well, in the Bible,
then it wasn't considered murder.
Well, yeah, there's very clear laws in the Bible, Old Testament laws to be sure, outlining when it's acceptable to kill someone breaking into your house.
Right. Well, murder can only be considered murder based upon the intent of the person doing the killing.
If someone's
distinct in one specific way.
And if they're breaking into your house in the middle of the night, you don't know why they're there.
Right. If somebody breaks into my house in the middle of the night, they can consider themselves dead because I don't know why they're in my house. They don't belong here. This is not their house. This is my house. If I don't know why they're there. That's the quintessential thing. I don't know why they're there. I won't know their intent. There's no way for me to know their intent. Therefore, I must assume they're there to do the worst possible thing. I have to. Yeah. That's the only way I can justify. I have to do that in order to justify protecting my family. I have to assume the worst.
Well, and so
they're done for.
And that was the whole thing with John Piper, is that he didn't seem to think that there was any reason to defend his family because we're all going to heaven.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a garbage reason to just let people die.
Yeah. So his last act on earth would be to stand by and let his wife and children be raped or murdered. And that, in the Bible, it's outlined that anyone who does not take care of their family is worse than an infidel. Is that the term used in the Bible? Worse than an unbeliever?
Yeah.
Worse than a Gentile?
Infidel's kind of the same. Yeah. I think infidel might be the word used in the old King James because it's kind of an archaic term for
the gist of it was, Bible. If you don't take care of your own family, then you're worse than dirt.
Yeah. You're not good.
Scum of the earth.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but that's something that has bothered me a great deal about some churches and some leaders in I can't think of it in particular, but I know I've seen it. People who their own families are struggling, their own families are falling apart, but they're out there and they're clothing the homeless and they're feeding druggies and they're taking care of other people. Their own family's falling apart.
Yeah.
Their children are running rampant, And I think that's extremely unbiblical. And I think that, there's a stereotype about pastors' kids, and it's sad, but it seems to hold true very often. And you have to wonder if somebody can't have a handle on their own family, should they be teaching other people?
Yeah.
And we can both think of an example of that.
Several.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a pastor in my old hometown years ago who his kids went right off that rail. They were not great. They did all kinds of bad stuff. And he just continued on being the pastor of the church, and my parents and I kind of raised our eyebrows at why the heck he was still there. Take some time. Put your family back together if you can. Don't be coming in here and trying to tell us what the Bible says about A, B, and C when your kids are out doing drugs and getting pregnant and whatever,
Yeah.
It's not a good look.
Yeah, and I can think of a few people right now who are heavily involved in some ministry stuff and their own families are suffering for it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know how we got there, actually.
I don't know. You insist on keeping this podcast going. I tried to turn it off a while ago.
I start to say something, and then it turns into a whole nother thing. Okay. And then we talk about turning it off, and then we mention one more thing, and then it turns into something else.
Well, it's getting late, and I gotta get up early, so...
Oh, do you?
I do. I'm a working man. Tomorrow's Monday.
Right.
Oh, right. You just remembered that I gotta get up and go to work?
I'm thinking about coffee already.
Oh, my word. Then we really gotta go to sleep. Lest we have more coffee at midnight.
No. Every night before bed...
You think about coffee?
I get excited to have coffee in the morning.
That's silly. You're a true addict.
You know what?
Start tapping that ready.
My life used to revolve around coffee.
Well, yeah. You were a coffee girl.
I know. Actually, I started to have bad symptoms from all the caffeine because if you're handling it, it's soaking into your skin.
Mm-hmm.
People don't think about that. Yeah, another reason not to dye your hair. It's soaking into your brain.
Oh, yeah, it goes right through your scalp. Someday we'll do an episode. This is where I drop all the hints about our future episodes. Someday we'll do an episode about environmental toxins and the fragrance industry. Because I find that interesting and horrible.
We'll talk about how I now make all our products and I'm making you use natural.
Yeah, now you're a weird hippie earth mom who makes our toothpaste and deodorant at home.
Hey, you know what? That deodorant is effective. Scoff all you want, but you know it's more effective than the stuff you bought at the store.
Oh my word. We're still going. We need to turn off. I need to go to sleep.
Okay, well we're gonna have to heavily edit this podcast to make it somewhat cohesive.
Oh, it's fine. People like the rambling, don't you guys and gals, whoever you are. Anyway. We have listeners in India and Ukraine. It weirds me out. I don't know who you people are.
You guys bots.
I hope you enjoy.
You guys are bots, aren't you?
You're bots. If you're not bots, talk to us on Twitter or email us at thehinterlandsmedia.com. Oh, at gmail.com. Thehinterlandsmedia@gmail.com. Or get on Twitter at hinterlandsfeet. I gotta do all the plugs. Catch us on YouTube. Just look up Hinterlands Media and find the logo that matches the Twitter. I'm not sure how else to find us on YouTube.
No, buy my books.
Buy her books. Yeah, listen to the last episode to get the plugs because I'm not going to let her do it now because I want to go to bed. Okay, anyway, that's it for tonight. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night.